Testing.
Prioritising your bras, women's, all things like that. So yeah, just going to get stuck straight in. First off, just talking a little bit about breast health. The woman's body is actually not designed to be very kind to women's breasts. It is literally just a fatty, fibrous tissue that has lots of sweat glands and glands that we call lobes and milk ducts and things like that. The only thing that protects it is your skin and a ligament called the Cooper's ligament. Which actually doesn't really do that much. It just gives you shape and it holds everything together. So one major fact is that when you're running and if you're not wearing the right sports bra, this Cooper's ligament, if this gets damaged, it's irreparable. Think of loads of little strands of hair. That is literally what it's like. So if they start to break and start to get a little bit damaged, they're irreparable. So that's when we get premature sagging and we don't want that. Yeah, gravity and age does it itself. We don't need to be making it harder, right? So yeah, protecting that at all costs is like the number one. So wearing the correct sports bra is the first port of call for that. Then it is literally, it's not a rigid structure, your boobs, as you can imagine. It's moving and it flows. So there's some nice fun facts for you. When you're just walking about, your breasts move in all different directions. So it's not just what we would expect, kind of up and down. It is multi-planar. So you have up and down, side to side, and in and out. And when you're just walking around, there's 33% movement in each direction. As soon as you take that pace up to a jog, that significantly changes. So we go up to 55% is up and down. You have 22%, which is side to side, and 27% in and out. So that's quite a significant up and down, right? It's a big shift from 33 to 55%. If you can imagine how the weight shift that is, it's up to 8 times the weight of your average breast, yeah? So if you think when you're walking, it's only 33%. When you start to take up to a jog and a run, 55%. That's 8 times the same weight of your breast. So think of that impact that you're putting on that tiny one ligament, and you're putting all of that impact onto it. So making sure it's supported is like a huge priority. When you're, a common misconception is the faster you run, the more impact, the more that number would perhaps shift. This is actually not true. So as soon as you take it from a jog from anywhere from a walk, when you start a jog or a really fast run when you're pounding the pavement and you're hitting it hard, that doesn't change. That percentage doesn't change. It's still 8 times the weight and it is still 55%. So thinking that you're hitting harder and when you're, I'm just going for a light jog, I'll put on my light support. It's still doing the same amount of damage. So making sure you've got that support is key. In Nike, in normal sports bras, we have 3 different types of bras. So you have encapsulation bras, you have compression bras, and you have hybrid bras. So your compression bras are exactly what it says. It just sticks your breast to your chest, sticks the fatty tissue to your chest to minimise that movement. This is key. This is it tends to be women with smaller breasts who prefer this type of bra, but that is not a rule of thumb. We then have encapsulation, which separates the breasts and puts them into their own little cups. So that's the ones where you have the 2 separate cups. That is great for women with bigger breasts. Automatically, it's a higher support. We do have high support in all of the compression and the hybrid as well, but it tends to be higher support as the encapsulation, just because it gives you a little bit more, it's a little bit more rigid, so it gives you that little bit more support. I touched a little bit there on, I've not mentioned hybrid. Hybrid is, as you would imagine, a mix of both, so your encapsulation and your compression. So it's got the cups, but it does kind of just stick them into your chest. Within each of these categories, we have high, medium, and low support bras. Your low support is for things like walking, jogging, hiking, not where, again, you're just kind of staying at that walking level, your average, typical human movement, so nothing strenuous, nothing extreme. You then move up a little bit into your medium support. So that's for things like training, working out in the gym, a spin class perhaps, weight training. And then you've got your high support, which is for your runners, for your basketball, boxing, tennis, all of these sports where it's a little bit more intense, and you've got that quite an extreme movement, where that, again, that movement pattern shifts and you've got that higher percentage in the directional movement. What else? What have I got on my list? I wanted to touch a little bit on pain. Sometimes what can happen is, I'm sure a few of us in this room have experienced pain when running in our breasts, right? So this is, when you run, you should have absolutely no pain, yeah? You should have no breast pain. If you do, you're in the wrong bra, yeah? It's as simple as that. There's no big, why is it hurting? Is it, obviously we're women. Things come into it. Different things factor into it. Your period, time of the month, cycle, at different points in your cycle, you're going to experience different things. We're all well aware of that. So although that's possible, when you're running, it should not be because of your bra. So obviously over-the-counter medication, things for inflammation can definitely help, but being aware that any pain when you're running, especially in your breasts, it's not necessary. It doesn't have to happen. There is a fix, and it's pretty simple. Get the right sports bra. Yeah, there's plenty of places you can go in and get sized up and things like that. I mean, I do it in Nike Town, London, so come in and see me, and I can definitely help you out. But yeah, absolutely no pain. It also can reduce your speed as well, so it can actually hinder your performance. If you think about running, whether you're protecting or whether you're opening up that area to give you less movement, if you're wearing the wrong bra, you're kind of going to do anything you can to minimise that pain. So opening up your chest or even curving over or holding. Think about the drive you're losing. We're all told to drive with the knee when we're running, using the arms to help that performance. You're already taking out 50% of your help there. You've taken your arms out, so your legs are doing most of the work. So giving yourself one less thing to think about, it's a no-brainer, right? Definitely get in and get that right sports bra. But yeah, I think that's kind of all I've been asked to cover. All good? Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm at Nike Town, London, so if you ever want to come in and see me, my name's Steph. Come and we'll have a chat. Thank you very much, guys.
Can you hear me? Yes? Is it on? Yep. Fab. Oh, it's all so awkward. Got my own chair, thank you. All right, so welcome to the Q&A segment for this Women's Hour. Basically, if you are just arriving, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're tuning in at home, also welcome. We've just been on a sweaty run. We're sweaty. I've had an outfit change. It's all happening. But yeah, we're going to get right into it. But first of all, as always, I'm going to get a vibe check. So are we all feeling good and ready for this next part? Feel like we can definitely do a little better. Are we ready for the next part of this segment? Awesome. So obviously we have an incredible lineup of panelists joining us today. And I'm going to give a quick intro. But before I do that, if you're having a good time and you want to share it all over the socials, the hashtag is #PD Women's Hour, @ProDirectRunning, @Nike Running, and then all of our handles, which we'll probably just give you towards the end because it'll be a bit easier. But yeah, we'll get right into it. So, first person I'm going to introduce has got 20 years experience as a sports and eating disorder specialist dietitian who's worked across the globe with athletes from London 2012 Olympics, the Rio 2016 Paralympics, and the Commonwealth Games in Queensland 2018. But when she's not doing that, she can be found in the mountains or running like a super crazy ultramarathon somewhere, which we'll probably get into a little bit later. But make some noise for Renee McGregor. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Feels like an ultra just getting here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so next person I'm going to introduce, we call her the athlete in progress. Oh, yes. The advocate, the torchbearer of inspiration and motivation for teenage girls everywhere. The role model I needed when I was a teenage girl. She's also a Nike athlete, or Nike ambassador. And can I actually say she's 14 years of age? 14. Make some noise for Isabelle Kyson. Woo! Hello, hello, hello. All right. Last but by no means least, definitely needs no introduction, but you probably remember seeing this legendary marathoner on your TV. I remember watching her as a young girl. Has won London Marathon 3 times. Woo! New York City Marathon 3 times. Woo! And also held the women's marathon record for 16 years. And to this day, just still runs for fun. Can you imagine? Make some noise for Paula Radcliffe. Still running. I love it. All right. What such a lovely warm welcome. Thank you. I want a warm welcome like that next time, please. Thank you. So obviously, we've got such a wide range of participation in sport. Want to share with the audience your background in the sports that you do and your experiences as a female in the sport. And we'll just go around, anyone can answer. Yeah. Who wants to go first? You go first, you've got the mic in your hand.
Okay, I've got the mic. So I obviously am a sports dietitian first, and I came to running actually fairly late. It was actually Paula who inspired me to run. I'm not just saying that, it actually was. I remember watching you do London Marathon, and I had a 8-week-old baby in my hand, and I was like, one day I'm going to run a marathon. And when she's now 19, so when she was 8, I ran my first marathon. So I do actually owe it to Paula, because I did decide I was going to run a marathon then. But yeah, I mean, I generally work with athletes rather than just run, but recently have done quite well in my running, and I've been doing ultra running now for about 10 years and done some crazy races, which so those of you who follow me know I do lots of crazy stuff. So, but yeah, I think for me, running is really important, because it's really what made me feel like I belonged. You know, as a kid that was growing up and never really felt like I belonged at all anywhere. It was not until I started running that I realised that there's a big community out there that made me feel welcome, regardless of what I looked like or how good I was. So that's kind of why I continue to run and encourage women to run, because it's just good for you and it makes you feel good and it's quite sociable.
Yeah, can I just butt in? Thank you. Yes. Can you just quickly tell us what an ultra marathon is, and also tell us what you did a couple of days ago as well?
So an ultra marathon technically is anything above a marathon, and it can be on the road, it can be trail, and it can be mountains. I tend to do trail or mountain races, and at the weekend I did a race called the Spine Sprint, which, for those of you who don't know trail running, the Spine is the Pennine Way, which is 268 miles, as you all know, and the crazy people out there at the moment who are doing the whole thing, and I did what was called the Sprint, which everyone's going to laugh because it was 46 miles of the Pennine Way, and it's completely self-supported. So you're not allowed. There's no checkpoints. You're not allowed to get any help. You have to carry everything. So it was a bit scary because I'd never done anything quite as extreme as that before, and I had no idea how I would do, but did pretty well. Came third. So really happy.
Thank you.
Well, hello. My name's Isabelle Kyson, and I'm an elite level junior athlete. And my main event's athletics. And although I do sprints, they're probably not as long as your sprints, which is like 46 miles, so that's a bit long. I tend to do hurdles, 200 meters and 300 meters. And I guess I started off with cross country, and I'm quite sure that most of you have heard of park runs. Yeah, they're brilliant things. I got scouted out by my coach from a junior park run, and I guess I just kind of took it from there, and I was inspired by Jessica Ennis, and I just wanted, after cross country, I wanted to try out multi-events. I've kind of dropped that a bit now, so I'm just sticking more to sprints and hurdles, and yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Hi, right, okay, so I started running very early. I'm always asked the question, when did I start running? And I can't actually remember. I can't remember when I wasn't running, put it that way. But I joined a club when I was 9, and then came up through the club system, was lucky enough to meet my coach when I was 11 and be part of a pretty strong girls team at Bedford County, and we won national cross-country titles, under 13s, under 15s, and that was really special to me, growing up as part of a team with some very, very good friends. That kind of success, pressure, whichever way you put it, was shared out amongst us, and we all supported and inspired each other and kind of helped each other through the numerous pitfalls of growing up as a young girl, coming through puberty and things like that, juggling it with schoolwork. It just helped to have that team around me, and that's one of the reasons why now, come full circle, when I'm a mom with my kids, and particularly coming out of the pandemic, one of the things that I'm very passionate about is getting kids back into sport. I think it's a ticking time bomb there, because once kids stop, they don't get back into sport very easily. They're not like, well, adults will take time out and then we'll understand we've got to feel pretty rubbish for a bit until we get back into shape again. Kids don't get that. They just won't go back to sport. So we need to find something to draw them back into it. So that's what I'm really passionate about now, is trying to get kids, boys and girls, back into sport.
Thank you. Now, this is a bit of a broad and vague question, but you've all come from different kind of running and athletic backgrounds. Can you maybe talk about some barriers that you've probably faced? I know people get asked this question lots and lots and lots about barriers, but just some key ones that have maybe like hindered you in your journeys, and just share that with us today.
Do you want to start and go back the other way? I think, number one, I think I'm very lucky in that the sport I was involved in had very few barriers to block women in it. I think it's pretty much equal opportunities, certainly now. I have to go back a long way. First 10-mile road race that I did, I, as first woman, got a table lamp, and the first man got a TV, so I didn't think that was very fair. But since then, it's been pretty much open, equal opportunities. I know a lot of women went before me and got women the right to run the marathon, to even run further than 3K, and I thank them every day for having done that for us, because I do think that athletics is kind of leading the way for equality there. There are barriers, I think, as a female in sport. Number one is probably around, planning your menstrual cycle around racing and things like that is tough. And then trying to plan for having a family as well around a sports career is difficult. It's not easy coming back after childbirth. There's a reason that women can multitask better. But we do need that support around us as well. So I think they're the main things. And then I think the other part is part of a women's psychology, where we tend to think that we can sort it all out on our own and we can take on more than we can actually handle. So it's acknowledging that, saying, like, it's okay, I feel really stressed now. I need to ask for help from somebody around me to enable me to fit everything in that I want to do, and to do it as well as I can do.
Well, I can only really speak as a teenage girl, but most of my barriers haven't necessarily been because of the sport itself, but it's been more because of like the changes I've gone through. As you know, we all go through puberty, and a lot of the changes or the barriers that I faced have been more to do with like body hair, weight gain, body image, and all that jazz. And one of the big barriers that I faced was actually during lockdown. And although I was still continuing doing my training, obviously by myself, which is a bit sad, but I put on 6 kilos in the space of 6 weeks, and that was a big barrier for me because it put down my self-esteem, and I was like, oh, I don't really want to wear crop tops anymore and sports bras because I was just like, I don't really look good in it. And on top of that, it kind of hindered my sports performance. So I noticed that there was a little bit of a dip in my performance. But luckily, I had a great support network, and I managed to get out of that. And I think it's also very important that other teenage girls and women to be able to get that support network, because I can imagine how hard it would be if you didn't have that right support. And I guess that would also maybe be the reason why a lot of girls and women drop out of sports. Yeah.
So for me, I think there's two types of barriers. As somebody who's worked in sport, it's actually really hard being a woman working in sport, particularly elite sport, when you're pretty much a female in a pretty male-dominated world. And it is quite ego-driven, the sports world. So I found it really hard. I gritted my teeth for 8 years, and as Dora said, I did sort of worked at London, worked at Rio, but it was kind of hard work, proving myself all the time, always having to prove. And I think as a female, and particularly myself, and I can't sort of generalise, but as a female, I'm definitely a much more compassionate individual than a lot of males. And I did care. I cared a lot about my athletes. I cared a lot about the people I worked with, and I didn't want them to just be a commodity or just somebody that was there and was just a machine. You know, you have to look after athletes, you have to look after their mental health, you have to look after their physical health if you're going to get them to perform. And that kept getting ignored again and again and again. And eventually, I left because of that, because I got fed up of coaches telling me I cared too much. So for me, that was a real barrier. And obviously, as, again, you know, now the work I do, still work in a lot of sports, but I work in organisations and sports where I'm valued for my skill set, which is caring, but also getting the performance out of individuals. I think as women, our biggest barrier is the comparison that we do against each other, and we're constantly comparing, we're constantly feeling like we have to hit an ideal and a body ideal. And, you know, as Isabelle said, she felt uncomfortable. Actually, the reason you may have put on a little bit of weight was not to do with anything major apart from the fact that your training had changed, and when you go back to training that would have changed and your performance would have probably gone back to normal, but you immediately associated that drop in performance with weight. Now, I'm not criticizing you because everybody does it here, but the thing is that is a big barrier. And I think for me as a runner, people always ask me, I still get asked now, what's your racing weight? I have no idea. I could not tell you what I weighed on Saturday, apart from I had a really big pack on my back, which was probably half my weight. But what I can tell you is that I trained really hard. I ate really, really, really well. I maintained my menstrual cycle through all my training, and I was whatever the weight I was on race day. And that's what you should be aiming for. So I think as women, we should be supporting each other. We're all different shapes. We're all different sizes. We're all here from different backgrounds, and it's amazing to see this real mix of diversity, which I absolutely love. And so we should just be encouraging women to get to know your bodies and work with your body, and not be looking at other people going, I want to look like that, because that's not going to make you a better runner.
Mm. Felt like a sermon.
Sorry.
That is such an important point, and I feel like as well as women, we face so many barriers, and a lot of it is comparison. Now, and I sometimes find that with that, we don't get a lot of representation either. So I know for a fact when I used to watch a lot of like road races on like TV and stuff, you'd get a lot of coverage from the elite males, but not as much from the females. And for me, that was quite frustrating, because obviously you have your idols and you get really excited and you want to see your people racing, but you only just see like the men, and you're like, oh, where are the women? But moving on to sort of working within barriers and overcoming them, what do you feel, and this is another vague, broad question, answer it however you feel sees fit, but what do you feel like could be done to encourage females to participate much more? So it could be brands, it could be organisations, it could be everyday people like ourselves. What do you think we can be doing to encourage females in sport?
I think what we're doing here, you know, getting women together, talking about it, having a fun time. You know, running doesn't have to be hard work. It doesn't have to be something you have to be really, really good at. It just needs to be something you enjoy and gives you that mental space. For me, I started running, as I said, because I was inspired by Paula, but I actually started running because I had a baby and I needed a bit of break. So it was like, do you know what, here's the baby, I'm going off for 10 minutes. And it literally was 10 minutes out, 10 minutes back. But it was really good to just have that break. But I think that's one thing. I think brands are getting better, but there needs to be more representation. There really, really does. Like, one thing I see all the time is I didn't grow up knowing a single Indian runner. In fact, I don't think there are many out there, if I'm honest. And I find it quite weird. Even at the race on Saturday, I was the only person of colour in my race. The only person of colour. It's definitely worse in trail running than it is in road running. And that meant so much to me to take that podium spot. But not only that, to be the 9th overall in that whole race. So not only did we smash it out being a person of colour, but we also did because we're female. And I think that's the other thing, is just, so the more we see that, the more we get women talking about it, enjoying it, and it not always being about your performance outcome. It's about the fact that it gives you something else. I think that's what we need to be doing more of to overcome these barriers.
I think that although a lot of women, and not just women in sports, but just women in general, are sharing their stories of, like, I don't know, their period stories, their puberty stories, just their female stories, I think that it's really important that it doesn't just reach people like us who are, like, actively seeking for that information, but to be able to reach people who might not be looking for that information, because it needs to be able to reach everyone, not just the few that are trying to find this information to help themselves. And I think that that's really important, because I had a bit of a moment before a race once, and I was on my period on that race, and I had really bad cramps, and I was kind of panicking. I was looking to my dad, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, do I run? Do I not run? And because I didn't really know what to do, I had to then run around the place, really panicking moments before my race, trying to find, like, a sports mum to tell me what I should do, whether I should run or should I not. Luckily, she said that, oh yeah, you should just run, it'll be fine. Like, you can just do the race, it'll help you take your mind off it, and maybe finishing the race will, like, help you feel a bit better. And it did make me feel a lot better, but it would have been great if I had, I don't know, heard maybe an example of this beforehand, or maybe if, like, other women had, I don't know, shared their stories, or if maybe my dad or other people would have known, like, these what to do in these kind of situations. So it's more of, like, a education thing that I think would really help. And on the subject of education, I think that a lot of us get taught about the biological and physical changes about puberty and just the menstrual cycle in general, but we don't necessarily get taught on how it affects us in sports. So I know, like, I'm pretty sure a lot of us in, like, biology classes got taught all about the menstrual cycle, all about the woman physiology, but if we ever did PE, we didn't ever have a PE coach that would tell us how it would affect us mentally and physically in sports, and how maybe being on your period might make you feel like you don't want to be bothered, you can't be bothered, maybe you've got cramps and everything. But it'd be great if they'd know what to do in those kind of situations.
Yeah, I think there's not much more that I can add to that, really. I do think it is all about dialogue and communication and just opening that up. And I think, in general, women are pretty good at it anyway. We will find that you will help each other. As Izzy said, you went and found a mum to ask. And I can remember being in a similar situation. One of my first senior World Championship qualification trials. And to cut a long story short, they had tried to put me on the pill before then. It didn't suit me, and it actually started breaking through during the race. So I did actually run up to the male performance director at the time and say, you've completely screwed this up, now sort this out right now, because I need to race. But I was to an older athlete that I turned to for help and support, and of course she was right there and helped it out. And so it is that community of coming together, I think women have, that I don't always see on the male side. It can exist on the male side, but it's not there in the strengths that it is in women. So I think, again, it's going to our strengths. What do we do well? What do we cope with really well? And it's endurance, it's keeping going, it's being able to focus on things, and it's being able to support each other and communicate, and not seeing the fact that you're sharing help with your rival as actually helping that rival beat you. It's aside from competition, and it's making you actually stronger to work together. So I think it is opening up that network, talking about things, as he said, so that when people hit that barrier in their training or in their racing or just in life in general, they know where to get to and who to ask to be able to try and pull together that advice. And when we find it for the first time, then we work together on putting that advice out there for other people.
Amazing, thank you. All right, so we're probably going to open it out to you guys. I'm sure you probably have lots of burning questions for our amazing panelists. So, don't all jump at once. But yeah, if you've got any questions, this will be the time to ask them. There we go. Straight in there. Do we have? Best advice from a coach.
Okay, we'll go with the best first because that's easy. The best advice from my coach was when I was probably about 11, and he gave me a sticker to stick on my spike bag, and it said, "Aim for the moon, because even if you miss, you'll still land amongst the stars." So basically what he was saying was dream, aim big, and work after your dream. And you might not achieve that dream goal, but you will achieve far more than you thought you were capable along the way just through stretching yourself. So I think that was really great. I actually don't think I've had that much bad advice from my coach, unless you count my husband as my coach, who, when I was in labour and I had a midwife pushing on me and the ventouse, what's the ventouse suction thing, on her head, trying to pull her out, he actually did say, "Is she pushing hard enough?" So that wasn't great advice.
I'd probably not be married anymore if that was the case.
I think that it doesn't sound too great, but I think the best advice I've ever got from my coach is run like a bat out of hell. I mean, it's not really, doesn't go too deep, but it kind of meant that I wasn't just overthinking stuff about before the race, thinking, oh no, what's the competitor's going to do next to me? Am I going to focus right before the race? Am I going to do this all right? But it kind of just meant that just go for it. Just like don't think, but like just go for it and just try and aim, and you'll get there. Yeah. That's the worst advice. I'm not really too sure, if I'm being honest. I don't really think I've really had much bad advice.
So we all have good coaches is what we're getting here. Love it, love it.
I'll answer that question as well. The best advice my coach has ever given me is to believe in myself. I don't think he's given me any bad advice, but I think there's a lot of bad advice out there, and I'll just leave it at that.
That is true. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, we've got one right at the back there. Yes, you? Yeah. How do you manage to stay motivated? That is a good one.
I think for me, and it'll be very different for other people, but actually running in beautiful places, and I'm not talking about going off to the mountains, I'm just talking about in the countryside, makes a really big difference to me. But then I'm not generally trying to run particularly fast. So that really helps me. Running with friends, running with my dogs, running with my partner, that kind of all keeps me motivated. Music sometimes at the end of the race. On Saturday, the last 8 miles, I had a playlist that my daughter had created for me, which actually was really cool because I had no idea what was coming up, and there were some surprises in there, but it was good. But it was nice because it made me feel connected to her, so that was really cool, and she couldn't be there, so that was really great. So that kind of keeps me motivated.
I think I get motivated by quite a lot of things. I think because I'm quite a competitive person, also just wanting to be the best that I can, in general, just like trying to do it for me, wanting to be like the best I can and trying to like just prove myself that I can be the best person that I can be. And I think that's a big motivational thing for me, knowing that I'm, at the end of the day, I'm going to try and be like the best person I can, like run the fastest I ever could, even though it might not be like a great time, but just try and do the best for you.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. Absolutely trying to get the best out of yourself always helps to motivate us. The other thing I always say is find your passion as well. Try out lots of things and find something that you really love doing. First time it's taken away from you, you'll really appreciate it that much more once you're able to get it back. So that kind of keeps you going through the ups and downs as well. The fact that you want to get back to where you were and to being able to do what you could do before. And so keep aiming for those goals, keep setting those goals, because they're the ones that help you keep you motivated when it's tough and you don't really want to get out the door. And the other thing to remember is, I don't know many times that I've come back from a run feeling worse than I did when I went out the door. So 9 times out of 10, you're going to feel better coming back. So think about that. Plan the rewards when you get back, and then get out the door and feel better.
Nice. We had a question. We had a question somewhere around here. I forgot who it was that put their hand up. Yes. There. Got a microphone as well.
It's actually a good continuation from what you guys have just said. So it's a mixture of the motivation and the barriers. When you suffer from an injury, how do you come back from the setback from the injuries? Because I've gone through that many a time, which is the reason why I haven't actually gone running back anymore.
It's tough. It is tough. And then you go out and probably like somebody who was injured sitting in a cafe somewhere when we were running today, you seem to see lots of runners when you can't run, and it really pisses you off. So I think that's the first thing, is to try and understand it. That I find that helps. Try and understand what happened to cause the injury and what you can do to avoid it happening again in the future, and what can you do to get it better as quickly as possible, and then try and put the energy that you would have been putting into going for a run into getting better. So whether it's the rehab exercises, whether it's just icing, whether it's getting more sleep, whether it's changing your diet, whether it's just pulling all of those things together, and believe that you will get through it as well. Keep visualizing and planning that first event back. What are you going to do when you get back to running? Because you will really perform in that one, because you will seize that opportunity to get back out there and enjoy doing it and make the most of it.
Nice, noted. Any other questions? We'll go here and then.
Thank you. Just a question on when you've had a race that hasn't gone to plan over quite a distance, for example, and you really wanted it and it just went terribly. How do you reset your confidence after that one, so when it comes to the next one, you're not going into it thinking, oh, but that happened last time?
Again, I think a big process of it is learning what mistakes, if there were any that were on your behalf, or what caused it not to go according to plan. Learning from it, and then release the emotions and get away from it. So have a good cry, have a good scream, throw something around, go for a run if you're able to, just to get rid of that frustration. But get rid of it, because I'm a big believer in that if you carry that baggage on with you, it's not going to help you perform in the next race. So really kind of, let it all out as long as it takes, and then get back into running as and when you want to do, with a new goal in mind. And when you do get ready for that race, make sure that you're 100% right going into it, so there are no little niggling injuries, because a lot of times that's kind of, it's either injury or illness, and body's saying we shouldn't do it, but we have done it anyway. And so then it takes a little bit of time to recover, but making sure you go into the next one healthy and get the most out of it. The best way to get over a bad race is to have a good one. So just it sounds really simple, and it's not easy to get rid of those mental demons. So I think that's the biggest thing, is to kind of find a way to work out that psychological trauma of it. Understanding it has always helped me. Getting the emotion out has always helped. Talking about it. I think talking about it with a sports psychologist, or just with friends and family, and just being able to understand it. But get out there and run again.
You good? I think there was a question just over there.
Yeah.
I'll start. It's just, you touched it a little bit about when we talked about the weights, but what's your vision? And I would like to ask all of you, about diets, because at the moment, every single coach and so on makes you go in restricted calorie diets or keto and so on. So when you were training or whatever, were you actually following a diet, or what's your vision on it?
Okay, I never did. Again, I think I was extremely lucky. Just looking back now I see that I was very lucky that my parents were kind of very sensible and balanced around eating, because they had grown up in that way as well. So my mum would never let us go off on a day of racing without having a really good breakfast, without making sure you had everything packed. And I understood pretty early on that if you got injured, the better and faster way to heal was to give your body the building blocks to be able to do that. My coach explained the same about recovering from training, and the kind of 20-minute window when you come in the door, you need to get something in as quickly as possible to start replenishing the glycogen stores. And so to kind of think of food as a pleasure, but also as key to being able to perform well. Never went on a diet. I did find out after Athens Olympics in 2004 that I was lactose intolerant. My mum helpfully said, "Oh, well, you did projectile vomit across the room when I weaned you," but I persevered and it was fine. So I just since then I try and avoid that, particularly around important races. But sometimes I think a little bit of something that you enjoy isn't going to do any harm in moderation. And so, yeah, I think it is about understanding food and enjoying food as well. And that's the one thing that I've tried to do with my kids, is just to make sure, particularly my daughter, that she understands that food is very important, and that without it we can't function. Never mind in sport, but just in school, concentration and things like that. It's about getting all of those essential food groups into you to be able to be the best person you can be.
Sorry guys, I've got to go, so I'm going to answer this really quickly. It's really, really bad timing, I know, but I've got to get back to Bath. Obviously, this is my area of expertise, and I've written a lot about this in my new book, so please go and get it. It's called More Fuel You. But what I would say is the biggest mistake I see in every sport I've worked in is people under-consuming. And, you know, in order for your bodies to work properly, you need a lot of fuel. You need more fuel than you think you do. And if you put yourself into too big a deficit, all that happens is your body goes into compensatory behaviours. So either you get injured, or your body stops working for you very well, you don't recover, you won't adapt from your training. It doesn't work. And particularly for women, carbohydrates are incredibly important. So, you know, we know there are studies out there that show that when women don't consume enough carbohydrate, particularly for the training they're doing, it actually has a direct effect on their thyroid function. And we can see that in blood tests, and I see it all the time in my clinic. So don't skimp on carbs, don't listen to people who don't know what they're talking about, and, you know, make sure that you fuel really, really, really well. And I'm really sorry, I do have to go. Very, very sorry. But it was lovely to meet you all, and yeah, thank you everybody for such a really lovely evening.
I myself, I've never really been on a diet. I've just kind of tried. Well, me and my family, I'm lucky to be in a family that's quite big on food, and we all love food. But we always try and eat the right amounts. Try not to overeat on, I don't know, like bad things like chocolate, crisps. I mean, it's good to have them as almost like treats once in a while, but obviously you want to make sure that you try and keep a balanced diet so that you get all of the nutrients that you need. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. Oh, we'll do two. I'll get in trouble, but we'll do two.
So when I was growing up, as I said, I was in a club group, which was great, and I ran most of the time in a group. It was only when I started getting ready for World Junior Championships that occasionally, maybe on a Monday night, it would be just me and my coach at the track. But otherwise, it was always in a group. When I went to university then, I actually just dropped in with, so I had a lot of guys that I ran with all the time. Yeah, I mean, I would obviously, before and after, I'd be warming up with girls, and I would do some track sessions like that, but a lot of my runs would be with men. And then, again, through my elite training side of it, I did occasionally drop in with other people, but most of the time it would kind of be with other men or with my husband. And he came on board as my training partner and then kind of went to the bike later on. No, nor the same understanding. But yeah, and now I've actually come full circle, and it's really nice, and so I can just go for a run for the social side of it, and I was never able to do that when I was training. And so it's one of the things I love now, is that especially when we're mums and we're rushing around trying to fit a lot of things in, sometimes the only time we've got to catch up is actually to say, right, okay, we're going for a run. No, they just make me do the talking, it's fine. They just say, okay, we're going uphill, you talk all the way up.
Well, I'm quite lucky to be in a group that's got quite a lot of female athletes in it, so obviously it's quite a good support network to have, especially when we all have our own kind of issues. It's quite cool because whilst we're like running all the warm down and warm ups, we also have like a really lovely little chat, but we also get to talk about our issues, so which is quite good. So it means we get to share our issues, know that like it's not just us, I don't know, just going through these kind of problems, but also makes us feel a bit more like give a good sense of community. And my group does also have boys in it, so I would occasionally also run with them because I normally have like a male running partner sometimes when I'm doing like certain training, and every now and again I would drop back into my old middle distance group. So that would be mixed boys and girls of all various ages. Some of them like tend to be the younger one, but there's up all the way up until like under 20s. So there's a big age range. So yeah, you get a range of both different genders and big age gap. Sorry.
Nice. And there's the last question over here.
So I would like to know a bit more about the running style now and how it differs from you being a pro to what you do now.
About my running style or what I do running? Yeah, it differs a lot, and people will say to me, "Oh, do you still run a lot?" And I'm like, "No, I don't run very much at all in comparison to what I did before." But it probably is still quite a lot because I try and get out every day, and it's generally between 45 minutes and an hour. But in contrast to when I was an elite athlete, there's zero structure to it. There's no planning. It's just kind of what I feel like doing that day, if I'm running with people or if I'm not running with people. And I like to kind of just let my mind go, so I don't plan a route. I will just go whichever way I feel like going on that day, and also explore a lot more. So I love exploring trails and just kind of thinking, right, I'm going to find out what's at the end of this trail, because I can do that now and I couldn't before. So there's kind of like a freedom to it there as well. And I also hugely use it as a stress relief coping mechanism now, whereas before I'm not sure that you could go into a really hard workout and kind of use it as just like thinking time and processing time. But now I do that a lot. And if I've got a decision that I need to make, I will go for a run and think on it on the run. And if I'm dealing with something like trauma-wise, then I always find that it helps to put it in perspective and to feel better if I can get out for a run. So it kind of fills lots of holes at the moment without having any particular structure. I still do occasionally. I'll put like some hill sessions or a fartlek in there, but only just because as I feel and how I feel.
Nice. Isabelle? Oh, we just spoke with you. Sorry, we've run out of time, but just wanted to say like a huge thank you and also a huge well done for coming out in the heat, strikes left, right and centre, but you still came along and shared this moment with us all together. And as I said before, if you're having a good time and you want to share it on the socials, we'd love to see it from your point of view. So it's hashtag PD Women's Hour, at ProDirect Running, at Nike Running. And if you want to share the athletes, you've got at Paula Radcliffe, if you're not following already, Paula_Radcliffe, and Isabelle_Kyson. Got it right? And Dora Don't Explore if you're feeling that vibey. Yeah, just a huge thank you and big round of applause. Thank you.
Everybody for coming as well.
Finito. What do we do now? Yeah.